For centuries, the feud between the Drow, the dark elves of the deep, and the Sylvari, the wood elves of the high forests, had burned without end. The Drow called it the Eternal Thorn, a vendetta carved in blood. The Sylvari named it the Rooted War, as ancient as the forests themselves. But this night was not about the war. It was about something older, something more dangerous. Far beneath the roots of the world lay the abandoned city of Nhar'Zuun, a once mighty stronghold of the dark elves, sealed and forgotten after a plague of shadowbeasts wiped it clean of life. It was said the city had been cursed, its halls left to crumble in darkness, and deep within its blackened heart lay the Heartfang, an obsidian relic forged in the age of the First War, capable of bending shadows into weapons and whispering death into the minds of men. The Sylvari knew of it, and they would die before letting it fall back into Drow hands. The night air was thick with the smell of pine and rain. Under the cover of shadow, a warband of 12 Drow moved like smoke through the undergrowth. At their head walked Vaelith, the Shadow Mother's chosen blade, her long silver hair bound in braids, her crimson eyes burning in the gloom. At her right hand strode Draven, a warrior built like iron and silence, his twin curved blades strapped across his back. Behind them kept pace Syrith, the youngest of the trio, a spell weaver with eyes too sharp and too curious for his own good. The others, faceless, disciplined, silent, followed without question. 2 nights more, Vaelith murmured, her voice like velvet soaked in poison. Then the Heartfang will be ours. If the Sylvari haven't scented us already, Draven rumbled. Syrith smirked, fingering the runes on his staff. Let them. The forest will hide us until the stone swallows their light. They reached the edge of the Blackthorn Vale just before dawn. The entrance to Nhar'Zuun lay hidden in a ravine beyond, marked by the bones of an ancient oak. But as the warband crossed a narrow clearing, the forest itself seemed to breathe. Leaves trembled, though there was no wind. Vaelith froze. Positions. An arrow hissed through the air. One of the Drow in the rear dropped without a sound. Then the forest erupted. Figures clad in green and leather burst from the tree line, Sylvari wardens, bows singing, blades flashing. Their leader, a tall elf with hair like autumn leaves, called out in their tongue, "Drive them back to the roots!" Draven met the charge head-on, his blades drawing arcs of silver in the dim light. Vaelith's daggers flashed, her strikes so swift the air whined. Syrith's hands crackled with black fire, bolts of shadow flaring and bursting among the enemy ranks. The warband fought with precision, but the Sylvari were quick, using the terrain like living ghosts. A second Drow fell, an arrow buried in his throat. Another was cut down by a pair of wood elf twins, their short swords moving in perfect unison. Vaelith ducked under a sweeping blade, buried a dagger in a Sylvari's ribs, and snarled, "We break through!" To the ravine, now! With a coordinated push, the Drow cut a hole in the enemy line. Draven took a blade to the shoulder but didn't slow, cleaving down 2 wardens with one swing. Syrith's magic scorched a path, burning sap and leaves into acrid smoke. They lost 3 more before they reached the ravine's lip, their boots slipping on wet stone. The Sylvari gave chase, arrows hissing past their heads. The entrance to Nhar'Zuun was nothing but a black crack in the cliffside, half choked with roots. Draven tore them away with brute force, shoving the others inside. The last of the warband slipped into the shadows just as Sylvari arrows shattered on the stone. Inside, the air was damp and cold. Their footsteps echoed in the hollow dark. Moss clung to the walls like withered skin, and here and there ancient carvings of spider motifs peeked from under centuries of decay. "They'll follow us," Syrith said quietly. "Good," Vaelith replied. "Let them die where their roots cannot reach." They lit no torches. The Drow eyes needed no light, only the faint glimmer of the fungi that clung to the walls. Deeper they went, the tunnels widening into streets of black stone lined with the ruins of houses, markets, and watchtowers, long crumbled. Skeletons lay where they'd fallen centuries ago, their armor fused with rust and shadow. The silence was absolute, until a low, distant sound began to crawl toward them. Click, click, click. They rounded a corner and froze. At the far end of the street, something moved, a mass of black limbs and glistening eyes. A shadowbeast, its many legs tapping the stone, its jaws splitting open to reveal rows of jagged teeth. Draven stepped forward. "Mine." Before anyone could speak, the beast lunged. It moved with terrifying speed, smashing through an old archway as if it were paper. Draven met it with a roar, his blades biting deep. The creature shrieked, its voice like grinding metal. Syrith flung a bolt of shadow that exploded against its side, black ichor splattering the walls. Vaelith slid under its body, slashing tendons until it crashed to the ground. But as the beast died, the clicking multiplied. From the shadows above, more eyes opened. Dozens. "Run!" Vaelith hissed. They fled, weaving through the streets as the swarm poured after them. The narrow alleys and collapsed towers slowed the beast just enough for the warband to reach a massive gate, half-rotted but still standing. Syrith's magic shattered the hinges, and they slammed it shut behind them. The clicking faded into the dark. For now, they were not alone. Far above in the forest, the Sylvari warband had found the ravine. Torches bobbed in the night as they descended, their hunters' eyes sharp and determined. Their leader, the autumn-haired elf, knelt by a smear of dark blood on the stone. He touched it, frowned, and spoke. "They bleed. The shadows will not hide them forever." And so they followed into the dark. Hours passed. The Drow pressed deeper into the city's heart, past bridges spanning black chasms, past statues of spider queens with broken faces, past the husks of once great temples. At last, they reached a grand plaza. At its center stood a dais of obsidian, and upon it, the Heartfang. It was smaller than Syrith had imagined, no larger than a man's skull, carved from a single piece of black stone, its surface veined with crimson light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Beautiful," Syrith whispered. Vaelith approached her, steps slow, reverent. "The Shadow Mother will rise again with this." Draven scanned the shadows. "We take it and leave. The Sylvari will be here soon." Vaelith reached out, fingers brushing the stone, and the ground shuddered. The floor cracked. A massive shape tore free from the dais itself, a guardian, wrought of obsidian and shadow, its eyes burning like twin coals. It swung a blade the size of a tree, scattering the warband like leaves in a storm. 2 Drow were crushed instantly. Draven leapt onto its arm, driving his blades into its shoulder, but the creature swatted him into a wall. Syrith's magic exploded against its chest, cracking the stone but not slowing it. Vaelith rolled to her feet, daggers flashing. "Draw it away from the relic!" They fought in a blur of steel and shadow, the warband striking at its legs, its arms, anything to slow it. At last, Syrith's magic pierced its chest, and Draven's blades crossed at its neck, cleaving its head from its shoulders. The guardian collapsed, its body dissolving into black dust. Silence returned. Vaelith seized the Heartfang, its warmth searing her skin. They had no time to breathe. From the tunnel behind them came the sound of feet, swift, silent, deadly. The Sylvari burst into the plaza, bows drawn, their leader at the front. His eyes locked on the relic in Vaelith's hand. "Drop it, Shadowborn," he said, his voice cold as winter. Vaelith smiled faintly. "Come take it." The plaza erupted into chaos. Arrows hissed, blades clashed, and magic flared. Draven tore through 3 wardens before a spear caught him in the side. Syrith fought 2 mages at once, shadows writhing around his staff. The warband, now barely half its original number, cut their way toward an exit. Vaelith stayed at the rear, her daggers dancing, the Heartfang tucked beneath her arm. They escaped through a narrow passage as the Sylvari regrouped, their shouts echoing in the dark. The Drow emerged into the cold night far from the ravine, their breath steaming in the air. Only 6 remained. Vaelith looked at the relic in her hands, its pulse steady, hungry. "We lost much," Draven said, his voice low. "We gained more," Vaelith replied. "The war has only begun." Behind them the forest stirred with the sound of distant pursuit, and far below, in the dead city of Nhar'Zuun, the dust of the Guardian swirled, as if something far worse was beginning to wake.